This week we have Lauren Devlin, who's a fashion graduate from Heriot Watt University, who now designs underwear for Vanilla Blush, an underwear brand based in Glasgow, specialising in life-changing post-surgery needs. Welcome, Lauren. Thanks for taking part.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Not at all. Do you remember what your first idea of a dream job would be?
Probably going through school when I was considering being a fashion designer, and probably the start of uni, sort of first year, I thought if you're not working for Chanel or Gucci or any of the big celebrity brands, like house brands, you haven't succeeded. So I had the highest goal, the highest bar set for myself, and it wasn't until I was in uni that the likes of your high street brands, like your Marks and Spencers, even likes of Georgia Asda, Fontaine Tesco, anyone like that actually became the more realistic goal and idea, and that would be the most amazing job.
And was that discussed at uni? Did loads of people say, oh, I want to work for this brand or that brand? Did people already have expectations upon them? Or were they just excited to be in university for fashion and they were quite happy to see what happens next?
I think probably the first half of uni, yes, we were all kind of just excited to be there, and the fact we'd all got into Galashiels in the first place was quite a big sort of deal for lots of us. So the first half of uni, probably, yes, we were just excited to be there. The second half of uni, you definitely have to start thinking about what you want to do. Certainly in my course, the amount of work that was expected by fourth year, I think most of us wanted a break. We wanted to finish fourth year, maybe have a summer off, maybe a year off, and then look for it. So it becomes less important where you're working or where your perfect idea of working is, and often it is just making sure you can get a job after uni, at that stage.
Absolutely. So did you do work experience when you were at school? What did you choose to do then?
In terms of work experience, we were actually told that working in retail and having a job would count, because then if you're working in retail, you're at the very end point of your product being sold. So it is really important that you understand that side of it if you're wanting to work in a head office to design and sell those products. So I worked in a few retail shops in the high street, and then I also took the time to do sort of travelling in Camp America, which I thought at the time I'm definitely glad I did it, because if I'd worked all summer, I mean, you leave uni and you work for the rest of your life. So it was really important for me to take that year in between out. So I did that between second and third year. But for third and fourth year, it was important to get that retail experience and potentially an internship by that point.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well, that retail is such a valuable thing, because you're actually listening to customers. Oh, that's not the right colour, oh, that's not the right size, so that you can actually understand what's going on.
Yeah, especially because I was 3 years into uni, so you really have a good understanding of what you're doing and the quality of garments you're producing.
So what was the portfolio making like and preparing like for university? I've heard that's a big job. How did you take that on, and did you get a lot of support from school?
It was a lot of work required. So I'd applied for a few courses at Galashiels, and there was obviously other universities, so they're all looking for different things, so that's where it becomes quite difficult. Yes, most of them you can cross over and just kind of send off the same portfolio. However, specifically for Galashiels, you had a full folio to do, and because I was going for design, but in my advanced higher class in sixth year, I was actually doing headwear rather than dresses, which was advised to me by my teachers at the time, which was fine. I did enjoy it. So I then had the concern that that wasn't going to be the right thing that they were looking for. Yeah. But going through school, so I sent off all the sort of initial inspirational photos. So you have to make sure they're all photographed properly and everything. So my art teacher in turn sort of helped with that side of things. The uni were quite good in terms of they were very sort of clear as to what they needed, but it was a hard experience trying to work out what it was to send, if it was good enough, if it was the right thing they were looking for.
Yeah. Do you feel like you came out of it strong, or do you feel like, oh my goodness, thank goodness it's over?
After uni or after the
After you put in the portfolio, you've put your stuff away and you're just waiting for the response back?
I think that was quite daunting, because most people, you apply for uni and you send away your personal letter or and everything, you essays that they need. Over and above that, you're then sending away very personal work.
Yeah.
So then for them, that's quite a horrible experience, because you know your work is away and someone's actually judging your sort of your skills, and so that's quite horrible waiting for that to come back. But there's, even after you send your portfolio away, that's not you initially in. They don't just look at your portfolio and think, yep, that's you. They'll then ask you to, they'll obviously whittle it down, and they'll ask you to physically come in with your portfolio again. So you take, by this point, you'll have a bigger portfolio because it's later in the year, so you'll have more work to show. So you take a bigger portfolio with you, you sat that down and you left a room. And so you just sat it down knowing someone then is going to look at your work. So you then get a tour while that's happening, and a one-to-one interview and a group interview. So it wasn't a quick process, and it was very daunting, because yes, I'd done interviews for jobs before, but nothing to that level, and nothing that was going to be as life-changing.
Yeah, it does sound like a much more personal experience than what we had. We applied for 5 different universities, and they would get back to you with different asks, as you said, in different states. How did you pick Galashiels, and what was Galashiels like? Is it what you expected it would be?
For me, I went to Galashiels because it was the course I wanted to do, because of the recommendations you would get after uni and what that degree meant to me. A lot of people go for a university experience, so I think you really need to weigh up what's most important to you before choosing Galashiels, because the dropout rate is really high, because people can quite get to grips with the lifestyle they lead in Galashiels. But if you're there for the degree, it really makes you work hard, because you're not distracted by nights out.
Yeah.
So you had no option really to study hard. So that paid off well for me, but I know it didn't suit a lot of people that wanted that crazy uni experience.
Yeah. But it was the best. You're living there in the knowledge that you're in the best place for your subject. So that must have been a good kind of like, no, I'm in the right place, this will work out. It's definitely for me.
Yeah, like I say, that's how I seen it, as in, well, you're here for 4 years, make the most of it, and it's probably the hardest I've ever worked. So I was able just to put all of that into it. So yeah, without distractions.
That's awesome. Once you graduated, was it easier or harder to find that first internship in fashion or job in fashion? Did that surprise you what the experience was like?
Much harder than I thought. I got a job in high street underwear shop, and then it wasn't until the February that I got my first internship with a local underwear designer as well. So that was great, but it did take a while, and I think only having that retail experience in an underwear shop probably helped me get that job, because you really need to show that you have a genuine interest in that specific area. So I think it all helped, really.
How did you stay resilient when you were applying for these internships and hearing a no back or not even getting your response back? How did you get the energy to start the next application?
It is hard to keep motivated and keep going through, because a lot of the time you don't hear back, so you're constantly waiting. A lot of the time it's just you don't ever hear, rather than really sorry, you're not successful this time. So I think that's the worst part of it, not ever hearing. So you're just constantly waiting for this email back that's never going to come. So I think as long as you need to stay positive in terms of it's nothing to do with you. You just need to appreciate that there is so many people looking for this job or this internship, and it's nothing personal. It took me, so that must have been about 9 months after leaving uni, but it took me that 9 months, but I was that person that was suitable for that job. And I think at the time, to be honest, I'd started applying for that internship quite a few months back, but they had already had someone in. And then she said, but once they finish, I'll get back to you. So I never heard back. You know, you're not that person's priority. So you need to remember that. They've in that work every day, they're not remembering about the young 20-year-old that wants to work with you. So I think I gave it maybe 3 months and thought, they should have done their internship. Now I'm just going to email her. I emailed the designer again, just remind her that I'm still here, still really keen. And at that time she was, I'm really sorry, we've literally just taken someone on. So then I thought, yep, she forgot about me, so I need to keep on top of this. And then I don't think that person worked out. So it was within that month she said, hi Lauren, I've now a position for you. So that took me probably the best part of 5 months to get that one job. So I think the best advice my old boss in hospitality gave me said, always chase them. You're not doing any harm by sending an email. If they don't get back to you, if they never get back to you, then what's the harm? But if they get back to you and I got that job out of it, then it would be silly. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And it's just having that name in their mind as well. If you're using your email and it's Lauren, every so often it's reminding them that you're still keen, because everything changes so quickly as well. They might think, we've not heard from her, she must have got something else. Yeah, exactly. So I think it is really important. You need to be proactive in looking for jobs that sometimes don't always exist. Maybe just getting in touch with a company. If you want to stay local, then contact all local companies, because that's when it becomes harder to get a job if you're wanting to stay in one position. If you're applying for things up and down the length and breadth of the company, yes, you've got the country, you've got obviously far more chance of getting a job. So yeah, you just need to put yourself out there, send CVs, whatever you need to, get in touch with as many people as you need to. Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's kind of how I did it as well. Just brute force of, I'm going to apply for all these companies and see if any of them are looking. Yeah, definitely. How did you hear about Vanilla Blush? So that was a funny one actually. My dad had been reading the newspaper that one morning, and I was sitting at my desk applying for jobs, just the usual. And he came through and he was like, "Oh, have you heard of this company?" I was like, "No idea who they are." He was like, "Well, they've just won a grant to take on new employees. They're talking about wanting more people to sort of build their team." And I thought, great, well, I'll get in touch. So I just phoned. There was obviously no email, so I just looked them up, phoned them, asked if they were looking for staff, and they said yes, absolutely. I actually think I spoke directly to the owner, but if not, I think it's always really good to phone up so that they have that initial contact with you, so they've actually spoken to you. So sometimes even if you've sent your CV in, or if you're sending it to a bigger company, see if you phone and ask the best email to send that to, so it's getting to the person it needs to be. So that's exactly what I did. I phoned, asked for the manager, and I got the CEO. Because it's such a small company, that's obviously not a stone throw away. So I went straight to the CEO and said, yep, here's the email, send it straight through. So I sent my CV through an email just following up. Hi, I spoke to you already. So there's that instant connection that is, oh yeah, I remember her. I spoke to her on the phone. And so I sent all that through. That was great. And I never heard back. So I was even that was probably the one time I was like, oh, I'm a bit gutted about that, because I actually did speak to him and I thought he seemed really nice. So then I followed it up and I just said, hi, I hope you're well. Just wondering if you've got my most recent email with my CV. Just if you're still looking for staff, I would love to even meet. Yeah. So this is when I then got an email back to say that at that time I wasn't the person they were looking for. They didn't actually need an in-house designer. They were actually looking for sales staff and nurses, sort of on the road nurses. So completely not what I was definitely not what they needed. Yeah, but so obviously my now boss, but at the time, so the CEO said, look, I'm really impressed that you got in touch, you chased up that email. Why don't you come in and meet us and we'll have a chat, see if there might be anything in the future. So I thought, I've got nothing to lose. So I went up with my portfolio. Lo and behold, that
it was totally not what they were looking for, but in my portfolio, you always go organised an interview. So so they were just really impressed, and I got a phone call maybe, I think it was that afternoon when I was in my other job. So still working in retail at this point. So that in my other job, and I got a phone call to say that we're really impressed and they want to see what they can do to get me in. So this is when they offered me, there was the government offering graduate schemes at the time. So then they created an internship for me. So it was a 3-month full-time internship. But because I had a job already, they were very accommodating and saying, let's do it over 6 months, but a few days a week. So I was able to do, so this is when it gets hard, because you really have to be willing to put in the effort. So for about just shy of 2 years, I worked 6 days a week and I took 1 day off. So you really, really have to put in the effort, because it definitely is persistence that gets you there.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not forever, but sometimes when you're doing 6 days a week and you're having to say to your friends, I'm going to miss that and I can't do this, and I've only got so many holidays, it's hard work.
Yeah.
So from working from that small company, you said the CEO was kind of the manager at that point. What was that experience like compared to the other things you'd worked for with retail and being in the high street?
Very different, because I think, so you've got your store managers, your deputy managers in retail, and then the CEO of the company is this phantom person that sometimes shows up, and I need to work with the CEO of the company every day. So I was in the same office as my boss every day, and we had this great relationship. So it was just far more refreshing. She was far more down to earth, and yes, she wasn't running this multi-million pound company that, say, when I was in Boo Avenue they were. Yeah. It was just a much more pleasant experience, and it's probably the nicest work environment I've ever had, even though I was working with my boss every day. And obviously when we're such a small team, yes, I was in there to design, but as a small team, you really have to appreciate that everyone has to chip in and do all jobs at one point. The wrapper, packer, processors on holiday, you're wrapping those orders and you're getting them out the door, because that's most important. You need the orders out the door. So I think that experience was a bit surreal, but probably something that taught me the most about business is you don't get to that multi-million pound company until you've worked at every level. My CEO, she was wrapping and packing and processing orders and dealing with deliveries and that kind of thing. So very humbling experience to realise that you don't get there overnight, and you really have to put the work in until you, not even until you make it, because when you make it you still have to work hard, but you have to do everything to get there.
Yeah, you were getting to the end of your internship. You had learned so much. How do you negotiate and how do you deal with trying to get a job afterwards and being part of the team permanently?
So it happened quite naturally, to be honest. It got to the 6-month stage and my boss obviously didn't really want to lose me. So they extended my job. They offered me a job and extended my time there just as part-time, which was fine for me. It still kept my foot in the door, but I still had a job to fall back on. So that's where I felt that was a really smart decision, keeping my other job just there so that I had that balance. So that went on, I think, for another year. I worked there part-time, and it was after the year that I then got offered a full-time position. Once I started the full-time position, though, it was still a lot of mucking in with the everyday processes, because there still wasn't quite the work, and it was only probably in the last year and a half that I have really got comfortable in my role, designing, dealing with the whole fashion side of things, which still includes making sure orders are going out the door, because it's a whole side of the business I deal with. So I do it from the start to the end, really, with the help of my boss. So it's always going, every day is different, and I probably wouldn't have it any other day because I'd probably get bored otherwise. So it keeps you really busy, and it's been the perfect role for me, I would say.
Yeah. It's really interesting though that they really wanted to keep you, but they knew they could only keep you a few days a week. And at that point, you saw the value in that instead of saying, right, okay, I've had my internship, it's on my CV, I'll move on and do something else and try and get a full time. You've stuck with it, and it's growing, and you've been able to grow into a full time job. And I think that's what some people don't think about.
Nothing happens overnight. You have to, if it happens overnight, it's not worth it. So you have to be willing to put in the time and effort, because I did with that company and they gave it back to me. So it worked out both ways. So I stuck with them when I needed to, and I thought, you could have been quite disheartened in terms of, oh, they still don't want me full time. But I seen it the opposite, as in they really want to keep me. They're doing everything they can to keep me. And I was there from the start when I think there was only 8 staff in total, and I'm one of the most relied on staff.
So what would your advice be to a young person right now, still at school, thinking about fashion or design, but not sure what to do next?
I would say do lots of research, and that's big coming from me because I don't love research. But I would look into different avenues, because I just went straight for fashion design, and it wasn't really until I was there, this young 17-year-old in first year, and I kind of thought, how did I even get here? I just kind of had a thought one morning that I might want to do fashion. The course you choose is the one that's right for you, because it might even be that you think, I just wanted something really creative. I wanted a role where I wasn't going to be stuck at a desk. I wanted to be really active, making things, being creative the whole time. But that could have been a graphic designer or an architect, fashion designer, textile designer. It could have been anything. So I think just make sure you explore all options. Maybe do some work experience throughout school, or take that year off, go to college, check it's for you first, because you're not wasting any time at university if you're taking a year out at college. You're not wasting your funding or anything like that. So I would definitely explore all your options before choosing.
Really good advice. And also speak to the people around about you. I did that. I knew I wanted to be engineering, but didn't know what direction. And I spoke to people around about me. And if their career is that particular type of engineering, they're more than happy to talk to you about it. And I'm sure it's the same in the fashion industry. If you just phone, or your mum knows someone, or there's a shop nearby that designs some things on their own, just go in and ask. If you're 15 and you're interested, people want to instill energy into you as well, and give you as much advice as they can.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Absolutely. What would you love your career to do next? What have you got your eyes on? What's the next big thing for you, do you think?
Definitely trying to do my own thing, try and set up my own business. I don't think you'll ever be ready to do your own business, because there's so much involved. But over obviously this strange time we're in, we've all had more time. So it's given me that opportunity to actually finally look into if I want to do something myself. And again, working in such a small company like at Vanilla Blush, it's taught me so much more. So I think that'll definitely be the next move. I've already started looking into it. I've always wanted my own thing, so I think that would be for me the end goal. Like, I've made it when I have my own successful company.
That was really exciting. And thank you very much for your time. I've learned a lot. It's been really beneficial, and I'm sure the people watching this will find it really interesting too, to speak to a real fashion designer who's out in the world at the moment, selling products and managing a team. So that's amazing. Thanks very much.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for having me. It's lovely to speak to you.